I hope that my work with farming has extended beyond farming into something based in community and in the environment. And so I think that the humans and the environment are two things that are really in need of help right now. And I'm doing what I can as a small farmer to bring health to people through organic food, to protect the environment through organic practices, and education for people so that they can know what things are good for the environment and what things are not. And opportunity is the final thing I'll bring in through the help of Hokkaido University, the Hult Prize, and I hear Akita University as well. Students will join us, and through Midori Farm and through many ideas. I'm hoping to bring more and more opportunities to people all around the world, because a recording like this can really make a difference to somebody in India or Australia or China or America, to hear that other people in other lands are doing something like this so that they might have that inspiration to do something themselves. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you everyone for joining us. I look forward to hearing all your nice comments. And please, anytime you can stop me and ask a question. And I'm going to ask you lots of questions too. So it's not a quiz though. You're not being graded. It's not a test. So don't worry about that. Let me introduce myself first of all. As Sangeeta said, my name is Chuck Kayser. I'm from the US. I've been in Japan for about 23 years now, mainly an English teacher. I started farming about 13 years ago, and I had no experience farming. I had no interest in farming, and I had no education in farming when I started. I was a total beginner, and it was really by accident that I started farming. And because of that, I feel like my situation, my experience is something that I think can inspire many other people. Because even if you've had no interest or no experience or no education, you can still learn something really incredible through growing your own vegetables and becoming part of the community and by supporting the environment. It is an incredibly rewarding experience. And today I hope to take you on a little journey of my story of why I started farming and what I've found along the way. I'm going to do my best to use technology. As a farmer, I'm really good with these right here. No tools, just these two hands. And as soon as you put a machine in front of me, it's going to break, or I'm not going to be able to use it, or I've already had several problems. So please bear with me while I try to use technology as best I can, because it's not my strong suit, so to speak. So, and I'll try to speak slowly, because I know a lot of people don't speak English as a first language. And if you ever have a question, please shout it out, because I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I've been a teacher for 25 years, so I'm very happy to answer your questions. So here I go, trying to share my screen. Let's hope this works. And maybe I'll make that bigger. Is that coming across okay, Sangeeta? Okay, good. Now, you'll notice that I'm not always looking at you guys, because now I'm looking at my camera, which is my smartphone. And then this is my computer screen. So I'm often looking here. It's not because I, don't know what I'm doing. It's because I don't know how to do it, because I don't have the right machine. But anyway, let me introduce you to Kutsuki Shiga, Japan. For those of you who are in Hokkaido and Akita, you're very well acquainted with the top left picture with all the snow. Growing up in Chicago, I had a lot of snow when I was a kid. And these days, there's not so much because of global warming. And snow for us in Chicago always meant maybe there's no school. Yay. So we loved snow. We loved it when it snowed when I was a kid. Unfortunately, with Zoom now and all these other online teaching platforms, I think snow days are no longer going to be the case, because even if you're stuck home, you can log on to classes. So too bad about that. But some of the other photos show that we have events like barbecues, we have farming experiences, and we also have hikes and nature tours and things like that. One of the most important things I've found here in while I've been farming is the fact that sorry, I'm trying to use technology here, so please bear with me. Trying to use the annotation. There we go. The food self-sufficiency for Japan of all the quote unquote first world economic nations is the lowest at 40. It's actually below 40% now. We don't produce enough of our food. We eat too much imported food. We are reliant on other countries to feed us, basically. And you can see in grain self-sufficiency, we're way, way, way down. And this is, to me, unacceptable in such a healthy, beautiful, natural, strong economic and cultural country and society such as Japan, such an old culture, that why is it that we're so low? And I want everyone to think about that for a while, and maybe we can have a little talk about it later. But we need to get better. We need to improve this, because everything that we import has a very big carbon footprint, because it has to come from China or Australia or America or Europe. And it takes an airplane or a ship, a lot of gasoline and a lot of pollution to be taken so far. So there's a few things we can do to help this. Number one, we can eat more local seasonal food. And number two is we can start trying to grow some more food ourselves. Let's see if I can move along here. Let's see. Now this slide is also important. It shows who is farming in Japan, what age group. And you can see that the age group of older people, 65 years and older, make up most of the farming. A lot of the farming is over 65 years old. And this was taken 5 years ago. So these people are now 70. Well, I don't know if anybody here has ever worked on a farm, but it's extremely physical work that's very tiresome. And you're out in the weather, the heat, the cold, the wind, the rain, the snow. And I think 70-year-old people just can't be doing this much longer. So not only are we below 40%, but most of our people who are that 40% are going to be retiring very soon. So as young people yourselves, I hope you'll take into consideration the opportunity you have to serve not only yourself and your body, but your country and your environment by taking on some farming activities yourself, even if it's just buying more organic food or helping out on a farm once in a while, to growing some pots on your balcony like Sangeeta is. I think it's a really great way for you to bring this number of 39 and below up above 8%. So I think young people in farming would be the kind of thing that would really solve this problem. The last statistic I wanted to show you was how many farms have closed in the past 15 years. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers for 2020. These reports are put out by the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries in Japan every year. And I think the news started getting so bad that they stopped doing it, because it's a little too scary for the population to see these things happening. So I don't know the numbers for this year, but you can see here in 2005, there were over 2 million farms, and now it's decreased like, I think it's something like 40%, 30%. I can't remember the number, but quite a lot. And then down here, you can see, it used to be about 6,000, I should say 6 million corporate farms. And now we're up to 12. So it's doubled the number of corporate farms Now, you might ask, what's so bad about corporate farms? Well, I'm not going to explain that to you. I'll let you look it up yourself, but I'm an organic farmer, and the corporate farm is the exact opposite of that. And a lot of the problems with our waterways and our environment and our animals are due to corporate farming. This is an interesting, not really statistic, but kind of a scientific report put out by the United Nations that small-scale organic farming can feed the world. I think a lot of people think corporate farming is necessary because it's the more efficient model for creating food for people. But actually, in the long run, that's just not true. That the only real sustainable way to grow our food is to be small and organic. So these are some of the things that I've learned along the way. This isn't what inspired me to become a farmer, but these are the things that are now encouraging me to continue and to fight and to work really hard to continue to be a farmer. Farming is incredibly difficult work, and it's not very profitable at all, but it is incredibly rewarding. It is the best thing that I've ever done, and I have a little boy who's about to turn 10, and with the way the world is going, I'm not talking about COVID either. I'm talking just about climate change and environmental collapse. I'm really hopeful that he can reach my age and be happy and have a healthy lifestyle and not be living in, a wasteland of a planet without any life in the ocean or without any fresh water to drink. So let me take you on a small tour of why I started farming. These pictures are just going to show you kind of what I would see when I would go up to Kutski. Again, being an organic farmer, I was able to see all these things because I'm out in nature all the time. And these are the things that would really bring me back again and again to see this beauty, to hear the nature, the birds, the insects, the frogs, to see the leaves change color, to see the giant tree, the mountainsides, the rice fields, the farms. With my son here, when he was about 4 years old, showing him how to work the farm, how to build beds for the farm. This is what's called a raised bed. And what we do is we build up sorry, again, I'm having trouble with this technology. We build up the walls here and make a giant container, and then we fill this with soil. And then what that does is that prevents weeds, and it creates more drainage, and it creates a better environment for vegetables to grow in. Farming is a lifelong education. Don't let anybody fool you. Nobody knows everything about farming, and you never will, because there's always something new along the way. See, where am I? Come here. Here you can see the vegetables inside the raised bed. These are pepper plants. Sugar snap peas, snap endo. These are lettuces. This is kale. And here comes the snow. And we're still farming every day, wearing gloves, heavy jackets, warm boots. We're outside all day. Here's my son with some of my prized watermelons. Feels great to be able to bring a chemical-free, delicious, sweet watermelon home for my family to eat, not have to worry about where it was grown, how it was grown, or what chemicals went into it, or if it's safe for him to handle. And that's also true for having people on the farm like this. I know that they're safe. There's no chemicals to make them sick. Kids can come on the farm and touch the soil and not have to worry about it. Watching the little yellow squash grow, I was able to introduce so many different varieties of vegetables to so many different people, because the Japanese just don't know what a yellow squash is. Whereas in America, we eat it quite a bit. So I'm able to bring in a lot of vegetables and seeds from other places and introduce it to different people's diets. And I've learned what grows well for me and what's sustainable, what's nutritious. And that's a great education for me too. This one seems to be taking a bit. There's some yellow squash that's ready to be harvested. It is so delicious. Golden zucchini. There's a variety of vegetables I cut just in a single day. Aren't they beautiful? Okra grows really well for me. A lot of people in other countries don't even know what okra is. Certainly not what it looks like and how healthy and delicious it is. There's some of the baskets we would have. Before Midori Farm, I started out as OK Fields. This is from a potato harvest. I grew 7 kinds of potatoes that year. You can see the red ones down towards the end there. Sweet potatoes, something great for kids to do. We just had our sweet potato harvesting event, the Imo Hori. Oh, that was fun. So many families came, could touch the soil, could dig for treasure, find sweet potatoes. Zucchini and squash grow so well for me, and they're so healthy and delicious. My customers love them. Here's one of my customers, my first customer. Her name is Sasha. She owned an Italian restaurant, and I would trade her a table full of zucchini for a plate of her delicious pasta. That was my first sale, and I think we were both quite happy with the result. This is one I think all of you should be familiar with at some point in your life, the concept of ikigai. Why are you here? What are you doing here? What is your purpose in life? And it combines these 4 elements: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. As a small organic farmer, I want you to think about it. Where do you think most small organic farmers are on this scale? Do you think they're at ikigai? As a small organic farmer, I have to say most of us are not. Most of us are right about here because we really can't get enough money for what we do, because we're not maximizing profit. We're not marginalizing things. We're not exploiting things. We're not using lots of plastics and chemicals. We're not trying to cheat people with prices. We're giving all our hard work for a reasonable price of vegetable. But I like this thing because I think that I always aspire towards ikigai. But if I'm going to be truly happy, I'd either be here or here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be happy or successful in my mind. Now, after farming for quite a while, I decided to start having events up in the mountains because it's so beautiful up there. And I would invite musicians and families and friends up to have campouts, barbecues, hiking, farm tours, playing in the river, things like that. And it's been very, very successful. People love it up there. People come up to help on the farm. Kids especially really love it. Now, I don't want to gross anybody out, but I just want to ask you guys, do you see this giant pile of stuff here that they just filled the wheelbarrow? What do you think this is? It's cow manure. Gyuhun. But when you're on the farm, you handle it just like it's anything else. You know, you're not eating it, of course. You're washing your hands after you use it, but they're not wearing gloves. You know, it's just part of the farm because it's all been dried and composted. It's pretty safe to handle, actually. We always keep safe, but these sorts of things are much, much safer than chemicals that people use on farms that have to use rubber gloves and masks, and still people get sick from those chemicals. And all the residues going into the environment and the waterways are so hazardous, whereas everything in the cow manure is perfectly safe. They're helping build one of my raised beds, even using the tiller, pounding in the stakes, having a great time. I could not get them to stop laughing and smiling and having fun. As hard as we worked, we were all just having so much fun because remember, the whole time, all you're doing is listening to the whisper of the river and the wind, the birds singing, and all the bugs buzzing around. It's paradise. And there we are, 2 raised beds ready to grow. Still have them today. This was 4 years ago. Guess what we're doing here? The old man who's a hunter in the valley, he invited us to help him seed his shiitake mushroom logs by drilling holes in the logs and then plugging them with these special mycelium plugs. Then the logs sit for a couple years in a damp environment and then start sprouting shiitake mushrooms. What a wonderful way to teach kids how to create their own food. Mushrooms are one of the healthiest things we can eat. So sustainable too. Here's the campground we use for some of our events. So beautiful. Here's my son at 4, ready to go to the farm with me. He always bringing the insect net because I'm working, he's catching insects. But that's okay. Now this guy, this guy's Aki-san. He's almost 80 now. Here he is at 73, climbing up a tree to trim it. Just healthy and spry and happy all the time because he spent his whole life in the natural environment, drinking clean water, breathing clean air, and eating healthy food and just working hard. The healthiest lifestyle you could imagine. This is Minas. He's from, where's he from? He's from, not Uganda. Where is he from? He's from South America. I forget the name of the country. I apologize. But he's a good friend of mine, and he came out to help me harvest potatoes. And this gentleman here, he's the oldest man in our village. He's over 90 now. And he's the reason I started farming. I wanted to buy his little place on the river. He had a little tiny garden that he was willing to sell. And I wanted to build a log cabin for my family to have a vacation home. And one thing led to another. I wasn't able to buy it. And he said, Chuck, why don't you just farm it instead? And on a whim, I just said, okay, why not? I don't have anything else to do and I could use a hobby. And that's how I started farming. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today talking to you all about the environment and your community and the importance of healthy food and healthy life. This is the gentleman who was doing the seeding the mushroom logs. He's a hunter. He's about 75 now, and he's real character. He manages the campground that we use, and he owns 2 of the farms that I use. Very interesting gentleman, very, very interesting. I love the local people, so much color and flavor to them. And of course, the snow days, you saw this photo before. As a winter lover, I love sledding myself, and I own 17 sleds. Yes, I admit, I'm a bit of a sled freak. And I just share them with everybody when we come up for sledding because it's the most natural fun we can have. And it really reminds me of my childhood. And then slowly I'd start to get people who said, Chuck, do you want some help on the farm? I was like, really? You want to come up and help me? Do I have to pay you? And they're like, no, you don't have to pay us. We just want to come and help. And I didn't understand that for a long time. But of course I said, yes, please, because there's always more work to do on the farm. I never finish everything. And so having people up there just to talk to in the car. One thing I haven't told you is I live in Kyoto City. My farm is in Kutsuki Shiga, which is in Takashima. And it's over an hour away. So I drive about 2.5 hours there and back all by myself. I'm more than happy to have somebody in the car to talk to, much less somebody to help me on the farm. That's awesome. So of course, anytime anybody says, can I help on the farm? I say, of course. And I didn't ask them to smile. They just had a great time. Same thing here. Some people bring their kids. They're there to help. They picked all those radishes there. I didn't do that. And the little boy was helping them. They know. Parents know when they see their child picking a radish or a tomato or a carrot or a sweet potato out, that that's education that's going to be useful for them their whole life. And then, of course, there's the reward of playing in the river, running around, having fun, having some fireworks, learning about farming, washing carrots. They're happy to help. Kids just can't get enough of it. Now, these three individuals are some of my favorite people in the world. On the right, let me get my annotation going here, excuse me. Oops, that was the wrong thing. There we go. Oops, sorry. I'm afraid I am losing out to technology yet again. So I'm going to stop that and start again. Just bear with me. I will get through this. This lady here, her name is Mika. She's Canadian Japanese, and she's the one who helped me start my volunteer program. She's the one who started my community supported agriculture selling business. And she did it all out of the kindness of her heart because she's so dedicated to helping people to have a healthier lifestyle and for helping the environment. And through her, I met these two individuals. They're both French. He's Leo and she's Pauline. Pauline is responsible for getting me to give up meat. I no longer eat chicken, beef, or pork, or any other such animal. I just still eat fish and I still eat eggs. And this is Leo. He was bouncing around a bit, and I think just partly because of me, he's also gone into farming. Having them up at the farm, it's just so much fun. They're just such wonderful people, and they're very, very still close people in my life, very close. So it's amazing what farming has brought, things that I would never have expected. And the friendships between the volunteers as well. This is Camille and this is Leo, and they're still very close friends because they met on the farm. This is a volunteer. Let me see if I can point this out. This is Louise, and this is Marine, both from, actually Marine is from France and Louise is from Belgium. This is my son. And these are two boys whose mom found out I was an organic farmer and said, Chuck, would you take my kids up to your farm for the day? I've got to work in the city. She never met me. And I was like, okay. So they went up to the farm with me 3 days in a row, just to help out on the farm. They were a great help and they had a great time. And I was lucky for it. I really was. And here they're seeding what I believe is spinach. And I'm using a wire mesh here. One of the fun things about farming is you get to be very innovative and creative and experimental. And this is a mesh that they use to reinforce concrete, but we use it like a grid, so we know to plant in the center of each grid hole, and that'll give the proper spacing for our vegetables. And here's basically one basket of vegetables for one customer. I've got 3 kinds of lettuce and some big kale right here. I think I also had some radishes down in the bottom here and maybe some carrots and some other things. Again, with the snow, I just can't get enough of it. This was a seed planting workshop I held about 3 years ago, actually in Kyoto City. This is Gosho, which is the Imperial Palace Park in the center of Kyoto City. And I just told people, hey, you want to come out and plant some seeds, take some home with you? And I didn't charge a lot of money just for expenses. And some people came out and had a great time. Again, parents know when they watch their kids interacting with their food this way that it's a very precious thing. My son, who spotted a ladybug on a branch and is just so into it because he can't, you can't get this kind of stuff in the city, this imagination. It's not in front of a screen, After this, I started getting a little more formal with my events. I don't know if it's going to let me do this or not. think it's a heavy data image, so maybe it won't come out. See if we get to one here. This is a project I ran for a grant that I got through a corporate organization called Gomigen, and it's based here in Kyoto. And their goal is to help people reduce their trash. And so I said, oh, I'm going to start a community composting program. You know, compost is something that's very valuable to organic farmers. And again, this is something I had to learn along the way. I had no textbook learning about this, no classes, no experience. I listen to podcasts, I read on YouTube, I watch on YouTube, and I read lots of articles online to learn how to farm better, how to be a better farmer. I think all farmers do that. And composting is one of the best things for a farm and for a community, because I'm here eating a mikan, and I'm sure everybody here loves mikan. And then here are the peels for the mikan. And what do you do with those peels? You throw them away. Whereas if you put these peels into a pile of dried leaves with some water, and turn it every once in a while, you turn it back into soil. You put that soil back in your mikan farm, and you're basically taking all the nutrients, or a lot of the nutrients, not all of it, a lot of the nutrients you took out of the soil to make this mikan, and putting it right back into the soil. So this is a good circle for organic farmers to remember, is whatever you take out, you put back in as much as possible. So I started this neighborhood composting program in Kyoto City, and I got about 10 or 12 households to bring me their namagomi, their, trash. And they were reluctant at first and hesitant and doubtful. Why do you want my garbage? It's so stinky. It's going to draw cockroaches and flies. No, it didn't. It just, every couple of days, I would take it up to the farm, dump it, mix it with leaves, and make wonderful soil for my farm. So projects like this, I've been very lucky to be able to start and be a part of and learn about. I've also started making some added value products like pesto. I don't know if you like pesto or even know what it is, but traditionally pesto is made from basil. And you mix it with olive oil, garlic, pine nuts, salt, and some Parmesan cheese, and you have a traditional pesto basilical. Well, what we have on our farm is a lot of pesto, or a lot of basil in the summer, but otherwise, we have a lot of leaves that are otherwise, going to be tossed away because we can't sell them and we can't eat them all. So we've taken some of those leaves and experimented with different recipes. And this pesto here is made from carrot leaves, rocket, and broccoli leaves. And because we wanted to appeal to a vegan audience, we didn't put in the Parmesan cheese. Instead, we replaced it with tahini, which is nerigoma in Japanese, sesame paste, basically. And we still put the garlic and the olive oil and the salt. And then we put walnuts instead of pine nuts, because walnuts are a lot more accessible here in Japan. And we've created this nice pesto that's very healthy and nutritious, much healthier than a traditional pesto. And it's all local, and it's delicious. We started making pickles as well. This is pickled radishes. When you harvest radishes, you grow thousands and thousands of radishes to get maybe 200 or 300 good ones. So you have lots of radishes that are just a bit small or wonky, or otherwise marred or ugly or something. And you cut off the bad bits and you put them in a pickling solution, which is basically just vinegar, water, salt, and sugar. And then you could add any herbs you want. I added bay leaves, which is laurel, and peppercorns, which is just kosho. And people love them. They're fantastic. This is sauerkraut that I made, which is pickled cabbage, basically. It's fermented, though. So you salt it, and then you put it in a bucket with a weight on top. And so you're pushing the cabbage level below the level of the liquid. And because the water is so salty, the bacteria can't, the bad bacteria can't penetrate. And the fermenting bacteria work at that and turn it into an even healthier product that's very tasty and preserved. So what I've learned through organic farming is basically not only how to grow vegetables, but how to connect with my community, how to be healthier myself, how to do other outreach programs to help other people learn about it, take part in it, participate, and have a chance to eat those vegetables. And having my son on the farm is just a big added bonus, because I know that someday, whether he wants to or not, he's able to farm. You know, that's a powerful thing. And having these looks at the farm here now, remembering all these days that I've been here, touched so many people's lives, been touched by so many people's lives. Seen these minka, seen this beautiful valley, watched the smiles of people, seen the natural beauty, and watched my vegetables grow more and more every year as I get better and better at farming. Using less plastic. I'm only using plastic on the walkways now. There's no plastic here because we're caught up with our weeding. That's that much less trash we're creating. It's wonderful. Harvesting sweet potatoes every year. In Hedda, that's the name of our village. There's probably about 15 people who live there. Driving home through the mountains, through the tunnels in the mountains. Watching country turn back into city. Still seeing the leaves change color at this time of year. I think you can understand why I'm still growing vegetables. Why I'm still trying to make it work somehow economically for my ikigai. Seeing the persimmons in the fall, that's one of my favorites. So orange. Just little things like these flowers will just make your day. Waterfall. They call this cloud ocean, Umkai. I don't know if anybody here has ever seen it, but if you can get up a high enough mountain in a valley and basically look south in the autumn, the clouds will build up as like a fog in the mountains at night. And then as the sun starts to rise, they'll melt off and disappear. So just at sunrise, if you're lucky, you can see this cloud ocean. And it's really worth it. It's just so spiritual, so amazing. Now this here is my house in the mountains. I have to dig that out every winter, probably 5 or 6 times. That's about 2 meters of snow right there. That's a lot of shoveling I have to do. But one of my favorite writers is a man named Daniel Beard. And he wrote several books. He was one of the founders of the Boy Scouts of America, actually. Before that, he was an outdoorsman, and he's a great artist, and he's just a great teacher. And he said, one of my favorite quotes, that hard work is a privilege. It's a privilege, hard work. And I'm privileged to have all this snow to clear, because it's so healthy to be doing so much exercise that soon you just get into the rhythm and you're just there. I mean, I start out in a big hat, a big coat, big gloves, extra pants, big boots on. By the time I'm done, my jacket and my hat are off, my gloves are off because I'm sweating. I'm working so hard, and I'm smiling because I'll jump, I'll make a tunnel into the house first. You know, I'll get in there and I'll start a fire in my wood stove. And, you know, I'll start it. And it takes about an hour for the house to warm up. Well, it takes about an hour for me to dig it out. So by the time I'm there, the house is good and warm, and I've got some soup on, and it's great. It's great. It's a wonderful feeling. This is one of my vegetable baskets that I sell to my customers. I sell my vegetables directly to customers. I don't sell to supermarkets or farmers markets. I don't sell to restaurants. I sell a basket of mixed vegetables to people once a week if they like it. Sometimes every other week is fine too. And a set like this will cost about 2,000 yen, and it includes broccoli, lettuce, red daikon, turnips, a beet, a zucchini, a squash, and cucumbers. And there's probably some herbs in there that I didn't put in or something like that. Maybe some green beans or something like that. And that beautiful patty pan squash. And it's a reasonable price, I think, for what they're getting because there's no plastic wrapped around the vegetables. They get them fresh that day, so there was never refrigerated. And the transportation is just what I use to get home. So the carbon footprint is very low and the impact is very low. And they're supporting an organic farmer who's trying this. So for them, it's an incredible value. Ooh, another heavy slide. Sorry, that one may not come up. Let's see if it does. Oh, there it is. Good. Now, this is a group of people that came out to support us at an event called Seeds of Sustainability, which is a group I helped form in Kyoto City. I'm nearly done now, I think, but this is probably my last slide. These people, and I'll use my annotation here if I'm able to. This is the woman Mika, who I talked about before, who helped me set up my program. And here's me up here. This is the gentleman I started Seeds of Sustainability with. Seeds of Sustainability's idea was, let's have events in the city. In Kyoto City, that people could come out, learn, or have a workshop, or have a meeting, or have an event about sustainability. And this was our final event of the year, and we had a big party at this gentleman's place. His name is Benoit from France, and he's still a vegetable customer of mine. And yeah, we created this group so that people could have an opportunity to do something for sustainability, because as a farmer out in the mountains, people could come out, but it's so far away, over an hour away, and there's no public transport really you can take there. So to have an opportunity in the city, I thought was a great idea to kind of bridge the gap and give people the chance to really learn more and participate more. So if any of you are in a city, I encourage you to form a similar group, because groups like this are formed just by like-minded people who want to help and want to do something. And when you do start such a group, you'll find that people really will join you. People will be inspired because you started that. So as I sign off here in my last slide, I want to give you the chance to say, organic farming has been so surprising in what it's given me. The opportunity to connect with my food, with my environment, but also so many people and events and education and my family, that I'm very lucky. I'm privileged to be an organic farmer, and that's why I continue doing it. So I hope I've helped you guys to understand kind of my story and why it's important to me to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. It's really inspiring. So the others, you can, if you have any questions, you can ask the questions right now. Anyone?
Yeah, it's typical. No questions.
Okay, I have one question actually. The one before the slide, the picture before this one. Yeah, the flower thing, the white flower thing. What is it?
That's a patty pan squash. In Japan, they call it a UFO zucchini.
Ooh, I've
And
never seen it before.
almost nobody grows it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Sangeeta, you said you're from Sri Lanka, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I know that that area of the world, including India, are home to a lot of vegetables. For example, the nasudi, the eggplant,
Yes.
comes from that area. But a lot of the vegetables that we eat in our main diet come from South America.
Mm-hmm.
So the zucchini and the squash, these three items right here, zucchini, yellow squash, patty pan squash, all come from South America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're not so common on this side of the world. I mean, actually, when I first arrived here about 23 years ago, I never saw a zucchini in the supermarket. Now you can almost always find them.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to see a squash, a summer squash. And this is it's a very valuable vegetable because it's easy to grow and it's very healthy and tasty. So it's just recently that I've seen butternut squash in the supermarkets, which is incredibly popular back home. I mean, Japan has the kabocha. The kabocha is an example of a winter squash. but most of the world calls it a pumpkin, which is fine. But people from the Americas don't really call that a pumpkin. They'd call it a squash.
Squash.
Pumpkins are really reserved for the Halloween orange pumpkins. So.
Also, speaking of pumpkins and the squash, there are many types of pumpkins. Also, like the how to say, the tropical fruits or the vegetables like bottle gourd, bitter gourd, especially the gourd types, and they are kind of hard to find in Japan. Truly,
Yeah.
if you find something, it's like from a small farmers, like organic supermarkets or something like that. Other than that, it's really hard to find.
It is really hard to find those things, and I have several friends from your part of the world, and they always tell me, and this is your question too, I'm sure, Sankita. Why is fruit so expensive in Japan?
That's true. Like comparing to the other part of the world, like where I'm originally come from, mostly like we don't buy fruits or vegetables in the supermarket.
Right.
Because
where do you get your fruit and vegetables?
Because we have everything around our garden. Like in my family, we have like 5 mango trees, 2 rambutan trees, lot of bananas, and a huge area of pineapples. Like we never buy those things. But in Japan, if you want to eat a mango, you have to wait for the season. And also, one mango is costs like about 600, 700 yen.
That's right.
So yeah, it's and also like the other thing is like the paprika, the bell pepper, they say. In Japan, they can grow it really easily, but they import it for some reason.
It's because it ships really well.
I see.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I think one of the reasons why Japan is so low in self-sufficiency.
Okay, thank you for coming back. I hope that you discuss about the matters. So let's talk about your idea. In the meantime, we were a little bit talking together with Chuck, me and Chuck as well. Let's hear it from Hokkaido University. Someone who would like to share your ideas.
We are talking about the reason, why the number reasons for that, and we thought the number of farmers in Japan is declining because young people move to big cities, searching for a big opportunity, like job or a good high salary. So, and the second reason is that high labor costs in Japan compared to other countries. That result in the expensive food crops in Japan. So we can say that the competitiveness of Japanese agriculture is weaker than other countries, like developing countries.
Why do you think people want high-paying jobs?
Because young men like me don't know what the future will be, and we want to save money. We want to make money as high as possible. That's why we want a good job, which can earn a lot of money.
I think that's true. That's true. Irene, do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about that?
Not really, but but I know like Japan is like making efforts in raising their percentage of like self-sufficiency for food. Yes. And like it's they hope to like I think it's 39% like recently. So
What kind of things are they doing to raise their self-sufficiency?
Izumi, do you have any idea?
Could you say again?
Well, you said you heard that they're making efforts to raise
Yes, I
their
saw the
self-
news. I saw the news on the internet, like daily needs, like vegetables, like rice fields.
Mhm.
Mm.
I know that Japan also reduced its plastic use by charging people for plastic bags now, right? So that's a nice initiative, right? Do you think there's something people could do, like Japan could do, to encourage people more to increase their self-sufficiency? Do you have any original idea, like a project, program, or something, initiative that could?
Okay, I once saw a documentary. It's about an architecture from Germany. He lives in like in the countryside of Japan, and like he helps like rural people to build their house and like just like design it and create it. Like they want to attract like younger people back to their hometown. And I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah,
Mm.
that is good.
Okay, let's hear from the Akita University as well.
Hello, and thank you for accepting us to the Hokkaido University study session. We really enjoyed the discussion. And we basically have the three reasons about the question. Like first one is the limitation of labor food in Japan. Like in the rural side, like the most of farmers are the aging and depopulated, like living the aging and depopulated society. So like as BD-san said, like the most young people are going out from the region. So that's quite difficult to remind their business. And second reason is the expensive labor cost in Japan. Like not only labor cost, it's reflect the price of the product itself. So the reason why the price of the product is higher than the other countries, maybe that kind of situation are. So, and the third reason is like geographical matter. It's also kind of related with the second reason, but like, you know, Japan's shapes like north to south, right? And we have a lot of mountainous like area, and it's quite difficult to have massive production. So it's definitely decrease that like the farmers' efficiency. So it's also like the place of the products. That's we think.
Kimi, okay, did you have some ideas too? Thank you, Maki.
So what I was thinking is how to incentivize younger people to more farming, which I think, as someone previously said, that younger people these days are not just motivated to go and find out the reasons as to why farming is not seen as something profitable or not seen as something to invest time and money in. So as I think Maki-san already said that we already have labor shortage and farming is not seen as profitable because of the exports that Japan does so far and domestic like food that we produce seems to be more expensive. That's why people don't tend to buy them as well. Only the rich people are able to buy them, and the people in the middle class tend to end up buying cheaper things that come from abroad. So in order to profit, domestic workers have no other choice but to make that like their own things more expensive so that they can just stay in business. So I think one of the things that we can do as a like the government can do is maybe like give not like I I know it sounds weird, but like loans in this case, not just like any other loan. It's like just like scholarships that are given to younger people when they go to study, so that younger people can invest in not only like agriculture but any other food related business as well. That might actually incentivize them financially to take the risk of going into farming, not only about vegetables but any farming industry, whether it's like ready-made food or whatsoever, rather than just going into like centralized cities, in this case like Tokyo, where we know that farming can be very, very hard in those areas. So they just tend to leave like cities like Akita or like cities that are not so like advanced maybe. And that's not a good thing. So if we incentivize the younger people to, like farm and use those things, we can actually make use of other lands as well, rather than just using.
Thank you, Himi. That was very good. Um, I have a question for Maki and Himi. Do you think vegetables in Japan, Japanese vegetables at a supermarket, are reasonably priced?
I think it really depends on the region. Like I live in Akita, and my family and my neighborhood grew crops by themselves. So like generally we spend not so much money for the vegetable. But maybe in Akita City, like the people may buy buy them in the supermarket, and it's controlled by the demand in the market. So, but still, the average price is like cheaper than Tokyo. But compared to the developing country like the Philippines or Indonesia, maybe it's like more expensive, I think. So like
Due to
depend on
labor,
the
right?
perspective. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What do you think, Himi? Do you think they're reasonably priced?
I also agree with Maki-san. The reason we think that domestic products are more expensive is because we compare them with foreign products in the first place. For example, a banana made in Japan versus a banana made in Philippines. Of course, there's going to be a difference in the cost. And when we see the difference, we tend to think domestic products as overpriced, not as general. So, and if we think about why they're overpriced in the first place, it's because of those foreign, because like they're so cheap, and because our like domestic products tend to become high in price is because people don't buy as much as domestic products, and those farmers still need to by increasing the products. And since the like other products in those cases to raise those kind of food, vegetables in and of itself are so. So if other products, maybe if the government gives some sort of like subsidy or decreases other price in the like market prices, maybe that might help the farmers to stay in business.
That's very good, Himi. Actually, farmers do get subsidies from the government through JA. Organic farmers do not. Corporate, conventional farmers do. That's why they can buy the vegetables so cheap from the farmer and sell them so cheap in the supermarket. I have a very controversial idea that, for example, if you want to go and have a really nice cup of coffee, you might pay 600 or 700 yen for a really nice cup of coffee, right? Whereas you can get a cheap cup of coffee for 50 yen probably. If you make it at home, probably closer to 20 yen. Why is that 700 yen cup of coffee better? Is it really better? It tastes better, but think about how soon that coffee is gone and what that coffee does for you health-wise, or what it doesn't do for you health-wise. And then you look at something like a daikon radish, and that daikon radish maybe sells for 200 yen. And you can eat 5 or 6 meals from that daikon radish. And that daikon radish, especially if you eat the greens too, is going to do so much for your body health-wise. But still, people, if they see, 250 yen, 300 yen daikon radish, nah, it's too expensive. I wonder what we could do. And this isn't a project for you guys to work on. It's just something that I think about, and I hope that you can consider. What could we do to make that more valuable, that daikon radish more valuable? So people are like, nope, 500 yen for the daikon radish because it's doing so much for me and I'm doing so much for the farmer that grows it. Because that would kind of kind of, we say in English, kill two birds with one stone. You know, it'd do two things at the same time. It would increase the health of our community. It would encourage us to, actually three things. It would encourage us to eat healthier and to buy local, and it would support the people who are growing it. And that's where organic farming is trying to start off. I mean, in places like America and Europe, organic vegetables are more expensive, and people expect them to be more expensive because they are more valuable. Because it's not just something that people are throwing a lot of chemicals and plastics at and marginalizing the environment. It's people who are supporting the environment. Because as an organic farmer, I know I want so much wildlife healthy around my farm because it makes my farm better. It makes it more vibrant, it makes the soil better, it makes the water better. It improves everything all the way through. So I see lots of bugs and frogs and snakes and toads and lizards and birds and animals all over the farm. And I love it because it means this is a healthy ecosystem where healthy vegetables can grow, and the vegetables are better for us because of it. And you know what? Our environment is better for it. So I think education could play a key role here, but also it's going to have to come from the consumer side. That's the thing, that the customer has to make this decision and has to make this kind of revelation. Oh, I get it now. Because major corporations are not going to tell you this, because major corporations want to marginalize the farmers, want to marginalize the environment, to take advantage of it, to exploit it, to maximize their profit for their industry. And they don't care about the community. They don't care about the environment. So when consumers and people who are eating and drinking these things can understand this, then the value for something like an organic daikon could go up and people would buy it. That's kind of where I live with trying to educate people. When I'm selling my vegetables, I sell directly to the customer. Here's your basket of vegetables this week. And they know exactly what I'm doing. They know how I grew it. I have 0 Japanese customers. I have 35 customers, 0 Japanese customers. And not because I don't like Japanese people. I'm married to a Japanese person. I love Japanese people as much as anybody. It's because the idea here isn't in this culture yet. And it's not your fault. It's not the Japanese people's fault. It's not by choice. It just hasn't grown up here. And it's something that I'm hoping for, that I'm waiting for, that when Japanese people kind of get on board with, oh, organic, that's why, I get it. It is more valuable, so we has a higher price point. That is acceptable. Whereas right now, people still tell me, well, Chuck, why are your carrots so much more expensive? And why aren't they perfect? Every single carrot in the supermarket looks exactly the same. That's what carrots look like. No, that's not what carrots look like. You know, that's not what they're supposed to look like. And that's certainly not what they're supposed to taste like. If you eat an organic carrot versus a regular carrot, you'll know. And I've often thought, boy, I should have an event where it's like, hey, bring a supermarket carrot with you, and we'll taste test. We'll see which one tastes better. And it's really the health value at the end of the day that I see that's important.
I have a question.
Yes, Himi.
I wanted to know, like you said, you got about 30 customers. I wanted to know how you got those customers. Like, what kind of like advertisement or like what kind of methods did you use to reach those customers?
That's a good question, Himi, because there really isn't a single answer for that. I started growing vegetables about 13 years ago. I started selling them about 6 or 7 years ago. And I went through the whole gambit. I went and tried to sell to restaurants. I went and tried to sell at farmers market. And I went to sell at events and cafes, like have a little side table. And then slowly I was listening to podcasts and I heard about the Teikei system, which is the Japanese word for community supported agriculture. And that's what I do, the CSA model, where people subscribe, they give me money, and they get a basket a week or every other week if they want. And I just started advertising that on Facebook and talking about, hey, join our CSA. And I built up a page on my website. You guys can look at my website, midorifarm.net. And there's a Japanese a little bit. I need help with the Japanese, but there's a little bit of an explanation there as well. But we explain about it. And foreigners know this. I mean, I have so many French customers because French people are so into organic and they seek it out. People who move here, they just do an internet search. Organic vegetables in Kyoto. Midori Farm is one of the first things that comes up. Plus, it's in English. So I am very popular with the foreign crowd. When Japanese people eat my vegetables, they love them, but they're still not caught up with the education as far as why organic is important and the health value of stuff as well. I mean, the majority of people put so much salt, sugar, fat, and other seasonings on their food. It doesn't matter what that carrot tastes like because they're going after the sugar and the salt and the seasonings. Whereas somebody who has more of an experience or comes from a culture with more exposure to such things, they recognize the fact that, well, I feel good because I know how healthy this is, and it's so good for the environment. And because of that, it tastes better too. I mean, it does taste better, don't get me wrong, but you know, probably everybody here drinks coffee, right? Your first cup of coffee wasn't delicious, was it? But then you started getting addicted to caffeine, and then suddenly like your brain changes it to be like, oh, actually it tastes pretty good now. And trust me, it's the same with cigarettes, it's the same with alcohol. The first couple times you do it, it's awful. But eventually you associate it with something positive, so it tastes good. Well, that's my goal with organic vegetables as well. Is when people have that education base and that exposure to why it's important, suddenly it's going to taste better and the value is going to go up. Not because I want to be a rich man, but only because I want to continue doing what I'm doing and expand my operations to do it full time. Because now I can't be a full-time farmer because I can't make money. I have to teach. I have to do other things. I'd rather just be an organic farmer, and that's my goal someday. But for right now, I'm just hoping to kind of encourage people to get on board with organics and the situation in Japan.
When you're working in the farm, like where do you get the seeds?
From a very wide variety of places.
Yeah, okay.
A very wide variety. I mean, there's vegetables that I'll plant from seed, and there's vegetables that I will buy transplants, baby plants.
Mm-hmm.
And there's vegetables that are Japanese seeds. There's vegetables that are foreign seeds.
Mm-hmm.
There are F1 seeds. There's hybrid seeds. There's heirloom seeds. I try everything, not because I believe F1s are better, but just because I'm still learning as a farmer. You have to remember, even after 13 years, I'm still learning. I grow about 60 or 70 different varieties of vegetables. And that doesn't include the 15 varieties of lettuce that I grow. That's not 15, that's one for lettuce and one for radishes, even though I grow 7 or 8 different kinds of radishes. So, and 20 kinds of tomatoes and 5 kinds of potatoes. And that's just one for each. So I have so much to remember and so much to keep on my plate that I can't just do all the best thing all the time. So I do a wide variety of seeds from a wide variety of sources.
Yeah, because recently I discovered that like a lot of farmers, they buy their seeds in like Homac or somewhere like that. Then when they try to grow the plants out of the harvest, they don't work because these corporate seeds are specifically designed only for the one-time harvest. If you buy a packet of seeds, you can grow it only once. If you try to grow the same plant out of the harvest, then it doesn't
You mean take
work.
the seed and plant it next year?
Yes.
Okay.
But it doesn't work.
There's 2 different things here at work. The first thing is this was a big case in India, a very tragic thing, like 10,000 farmers committing suicide because of Monsanto seeds, and you couldn't save seeds, and people losing their farms and things like that. There are some plants that grow that we eat that will produce sterile seeds because they were genetically engineered to do so or hybridized to do so. But it's pretty rare, that case, that they won't produce anything. What's much more common is what's called an F1 or filial 1, which is a hybrid seed. So they basically take 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different kinds of plants, you know, kind of hybridize them together, grafting and other things that I'm not even sure of because I don't want to study about that. But basically, so then they'll grow, for example, this is a tomato, a hybrid tomato. And I grew it. It's beautiful. It's perfect, you know? And I take that seed and I plant it next year and up grows a tomato plant. But next year's tomato looks totally different and tastes totally different. And it's not good because that first beautiful tomato is a combination of like 2 to 6 different kinds of tomato plants. One kind of tomato that tastes really good. One kind of tomato plant that produces really well. One kind of tomato plant that's resistant to disease. One kind of tomato plant that does this and that and that. So they mix them all together. And then you take that seed out and you plant it next year. Well, that mix is no longer there. And one of those mixes is going to be what you grow out. So that tomato that really produces a lot, but the tomatoes are terrible. This is what happens a lot with hybrid or F1 seeds. So I'm not sure that it wouldn't grow at all. That's pretty rare, but that it'll grow something that's not as good is very common. One thing that's important for you guys to remember is the statistics that I showed you about being below 40% self-sufficiency. The important thing of that is calories. It's not food, it's calories. And you should look deeper into that issue. But basically, the takeaway here is if we ate rice, vegetables, and some seafood, the traditional Japanese diet, we would be over 80% self-sufficient.
Okay, thank you for coming. And if you don't have any more questions, let's finish from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.